All right, guys, it's been a while, but we're back at it again. And I decided to dip my toes in something pretty simple so I don't have to stress myself out or think of something to talk about. There's so much to talk about, but it's too many things. So it puts my brain on tilt. Like I can't handle it. Anyway, so that's Shawni with me again.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about something that's pretty simple. We've talked about this before, and we're gonna wrap it in with a couple different stories. So we're on an article. So Manga has topped the adult graphic novel top 20. It's the top 20 in adult graphic novels again for the second month in a row. The first time this has ever happened was in April. Now May. So it seems to be that this might be a trend going forward. And I'm gonna show the two. I'll show the one for April. I'll show the one for April, and I'll show the one for May. It's My Hero Jujutsu Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer has been just killing it with the movie that's been out, and then the manga sales and all that. Attack on Titan. Oh, Volume 1. People going way back. Yeah, Jujutsu Demon Slayer. Tokyo Ghoul. I remember when we saw this and we were like, Tokyo Ghoul?
Yeah.
It's such a random one. And then My Hero. My Hero's in there a couple times, I think twice. Yeah, the first one, the 27th, and then the 26th volume. So then in May, we have Attack on Titan, Volume 33. More Demon Slayer. A lot of Demon Slayer. My Hero. Attack on Titan. Spy X Family. I have no idea what this is.
I don't know.
Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know what Tokyo Toilet Bound is. Jujutsu, Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter is always selling. And then more Demon Slayer. So Demon Slayer is basically just takes up 6 of these spots.
Mm-hmm.
No, 8.
Yeah.
8 of these spots. So yeah. So basically what we talked about is just goes to show that, like we said before, there's something in manga, and I've listed out my theories where it's the readability, the fact that you can pick up one book from volume 1 and then finish it out. You don't have to worry about continuity necessarily in like a wider universal scope, because hardly any of these books have universal continuities that, you know, span multiple timelines and stuff. I mean, like you have your FG, you have your fates and stuff that do, but for the most part they're self-contained, easy to pick up. The stories, there's a wide range of stories from shonen to, I forgot the female version of shonen, which is basically young girls.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a
Shonen appeals to young boys, and then girls have their own, but I can't remember the name of it, where it appeals to young girls or teenage girls, I should say, preteen and teenage girls. They have your rom-coms, you have your horror, you have a bunch of different things, and there isn't one necessarily. There isn't an issue of two industry titans that only put out one type of book dominating the space, and nobody's reading anything else. A lot of these books are more insular in terms of, and what I mean insular is it's a lot more closely related to what the mangaka, the artist and writer, wants it to be, because a lot of these individuals do control their own IPs, which is very smart. That industry is built off of that. The only bad thing is, you know, you might not get your shit picked up, you know, and it's a very hard job, especially if you do weekly mangas or weekly chapters. It can be very taxing. Remember I told you about the Naruto creator, and he didn't go into his wedding until after
he didn't
Naruto.
go on his honeymoon until after Naruto
was done.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. The Berserk mangaka, he who unfortunately passed away, he took several breaks in between. I mean, that manga had been going for 20 years.
Yeah.
But he had took several breaks in between, stuff like that. People ironically said that he was going to die before he finished that manga, well before he actually passed away. So, yeah. But anyway, this is the tie into what I'm seeing, and in terms of attacks upon this is something else, attacks upon the manga industry. Like for instance, the Power Girl creator, and you're seeing a lot of more Western comics because of jealousy attack manga because it's becoming more and more prominent. So you had the guy who co-created Power Girl, and he co-created a couple other characters, and he was saying basically that here's the tweet, and it's archived. So when I put this link in, if you want to go to the archive tweet, he said American comic book artists are taken deservedly to task regularly for outrageous sexist treatment of women. But rarely do I see any commentary on the rapid sexism and misogyny in manga, and manga is incredibly popular with young readers. In reality, when I first heard it, because this was in May, when I first heard this, I thought that they were just attacking it based off of pure jealousy in terms of with the numbers that they're doing in terms of manga versus American comics. But I also think it's a creative jealousy as well, where they're able to, in Japan, do a lot of these things and experiment with genre and characters, whereas in American comics, there's a lot of taboo, touchy things that people don't want you to talk about or write about, and it makes your job a lot harder as a creative.
Yeah. It's quite ironic. The guy who co-created a character with a literal boob window is really out here trying to take manga creators to task about this. This is actually pretty hilarious. Yeah.
And he the image here that he posted, it's from Demon Builder. So it's just this cover from the 4th volume. He then goes on to say, not to mention manga's rampant sexualization of teens and preteens and young women and readers and blah, blah, blah. And then he puts Nagatoro.
Nagatoro is a lunatic.
She is a lunatic. She's a terrible person.
It's just, I don't know what it is that these people want. Like, hey man, worry about your own comic. Worry about American comics and how in maybe 5 to 10 years there aren't going to be any anymore.
When your industry collapses.
Your industry is completely just constantly trying to shuffle itself around to stay afloat. Like, American comics are so garbage right now. Like it's wild because it's like then they look at manga and like you said, it's like kind of like a professional jealousy in a way, like a creative jealousy where it's like you really have this this medium that for all intent and purposes shouldn't catch the eye of people who don't speak the language that it's originally written in.
Or the culture.
You know, that people are clamoring and they love and they hold with such reverence. And then there's American comics where everything is PC this and we need to have women with square jawlines and flatter chests because not all women have boobs. And I'm like, it's just...
Our women, in order to be strong, have to be men.
Yeah, like that's the weird thing is it's like what happened to the whole like thing where it's like, oh, well, she's hot and she's also like brilliant and she's hot and she's strong. Like,
apparently that's sexist. Yeah, so you can't
wild.
do it. Like, so, and then what I do like about this Bounding in the Comics article is that they go in and say that it's pretty ironic because what a lot of these people don't know is most of these characters, or a large portion of them, are created by women.
They're created by women.
This character, Bayonetta.
Oh, my girl.
She was created by a female artist. Yeah. And the artist actually said, I think she's sexy. I think she's strong. And that's why I made her like that.
Have you seen the way she walks? I absolutely adore the way the Bayonetta walks. Like, oh my goodness. The power. I wish.
And you know, it's her suit's made of her hair, and it's just kind of cool. It's just a cool concept for a character, and they do wishes and doing magic and all that. It's pretty cool.
But they seem to neglect the fact that a lot of them are created by women. They're written by women, and they try to make it seem like, oh, or they call those women pick me, because pick me's they're like, oh, they're trying to appeal to 40-year-old gross men, and I'm like, no, they just understand that you don't have to create a character that looks like a man that's a woman in order to sell or for it to be a strong woman. Like, you don't need to do that.
Or as they like to lambast men for creating male power fantasies, maybe these are women creating women power fantasies.
Oh, yeah. They don't
or female power
they
fantasies.
don't really think about that.
And this is their way of making those female power fantasies. But you see, when you look at everything in a lens of progressivism, cultural Marxism and stuff like that, you you don't look at things for what they are, and you think people's motivations are purely based off of either power dynamics, power structures, and not maybe somebody just wants to make something and this is what they creatively decided to make, and people resonate with that. Because I mean, hell, me and Shawni have talked about the hero's journey and the lack of the hero's journey, and the fact that this subversion of the hero's journey, which is the standard for any hero story, that tried and true way of creating a hero's journey is tried and true for a reason. It works. I mean, there's different takes on it and different, spins on it, but ultimately the formula itself works. And you can plug and play pretty much anybody, any setting, anything into that formula, and it will work. Yeah. But there's a reason for this. And then, like, I talked to Shawni about Full Metal Alchemist. People love Full Metal Alchemist. Creator's a woman. Probably one of the most popular animes and manga ever created, made by a woman. If you go on my anime list, the anime Brotherhood anyway, not the 2003 anime. If you didn't know, there's two different ones. The Brotherhood is the number one ranked anime on my anime list by fans.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Made by a woman.
Yeah.
So I in all honesty, I feel like, and even it goes to, I know we're going on a tangent, but this is really important to us because this is stuff that we've grown up with, and it seems like these people who never were necessarily interested in these things, or in the case of Gerry Conway, he is somebody that is an old school person who's now trying to pander to this weird cult of people that have invaded this industry,
trying to make up for his quote unquote past sins, essentially, where it's, he created a character that was overtly sexy and still a powerful character, but she had a literal boob window.
And then just the number, like, this is King of Fighters from this women from King of Fighters, and just different types of people. You got one in a pantsuit, man. I forgot her name.
She's
the one
so
in the
cute
middle
with her little vest.
And you got Mia. I love her the most.
Oh my goodness.
And then you have, I can't really talk on King of Fighters like that. I only know some things about King of Fighters. I don't know a lot of stuff. And yeah, but these are characters from that. It's just I remember when they were upset about Uzaki. Ooh, they were upset. They're like, she looks like a 12-year-old with big boobs. I was like, I've seen
some
women
people just look like that. Amen. Like,
I've seen women that do that.
Yeah, some people just look like that. It just is what it is.
One Piece, they hate the way the women in One Piece are drawn. So, and like I said, it seems like not only a financial, because initially I'm like, it's financial. They're upset that they're not selling. They're not as big. They're not as known as these people in Japan. And mind you, these people in Japan making the mangaka over there making these graphic novels, making these stories work 10 times as hard as the people over here. Yeah. I'm telling you, I just told you, my boy who made Naruto did not go on his honeymoon until the series was done. That's about a 20-year series. Yeah. 15 years, I think that series ran for. 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
My man was constantly getting sick. Kubo? You want to talk about Kubo?
Yeah, Kubo. Bleach, yeah.
Bleach? My boy Kubo ran dry towards the end of Bleach, man. Kubo couldn't keep going. And you could tell the quality of the story, not the art, because the boy can draw. Kubo can draw. With the quality
but not backgrounds. Kubo can't draw backgrounds. What
happened was he started getting lazy with backgrounds. He just started focusing on the characters.
Just what the characters look like.
And the characters looked really good and kept getting better. But
he didn't like backgrounds.
The background started fading out slowly. You start cutting corners when you got weekly chapters you got to put out. But a lot of them do have assistants and stuff now too, which is good. Especially for the bigger titles, they do have assistants working on it. But a lot of the times, they don't want to give their assistants too much responsibility in the series.
Which makes sense.
So they had them draw this building.
Yeah.
Like they'll do stuff like that, or they'll like ink my penciling stuff. stuff like that. But I wish that they would. That's the one thing I wish would change with the mangaka is they were able to kind of take breaks, take hiatuses when needed, because this stuff will burn you out. I think it was Toriyama had a schedule, and he had to schedule out time to sleep. I think it was Toriyama.
That's wild.
And my boy had like, I think they said 2 or 3 hours of sleep he would schedule out. Man. And then he had like free time for an hour, and the rest of the time he's just doing stuff for the manga.
Right.
So, all right. So I also want to talk about this, the Love Hina creator. So it's another thing that's being talked about in the mangaka space, in the manga space, where it's a lot of these creators now are getting kind of worried about the influence of the Western world and the wider world of manga. And I'll read you some of his quotes. People love Hina. Love Hina is very popular. It's actually pretty good. I went too far. Okay, so you talked about political correctness. Political correctness, external pressure is coming, such as the pressure to introduce political correctness into manga and movies. That's dangerous, isn't it? And this is a panel of 2 different mangaka, pretty well-known mangaka. And then it's Akamatsu then explained, so far the Japanese manga is a stage looking at the world, and there's pressure on the scene to meet more global standards. He goes on to say, I'd like to have the manga artists unify their opinions to some extent as to whether such things are correct or not. However, when the sales of the works that have become globalized and have no sharp edges are good, they end up saying, oh, political correctness might be good. And then his sentiments were echoed by the co-panelist to Takuma, and he said that regardless of the company, I think freedom of expression should be respected, in my personal opinion. And they kind of just go on and they talk about how, you know, they're worried about this is going to start affecting sales, where they're going to have to appeal to a more wider and wider audience. And what I would counter with was, the reason why your industry is so successful right now is because of the risk you guys are willing to take. And there are stories that are more cookie cutter, but there are stories that are edgier, and you have to be willing to, you know, do these different things and continue on with what has made your industry successful up until this point.
Yeah, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, the people who read manga, the people who enjoy anime, they have no problem with this. Like, the people who are complaining on Twitter, they don't really read manga. They don't really watch anime. Like, you ask them, oh, what's your favorite anime? Who, Sailor Moon? I bet Sailor Moon's your favorite anime. Like, it's super casual. Like, it's just, I wouldn't appease them. Like, I wouldn't do anything to try and get them to, I guess, apparently be okay with what's going on in manga and anime. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sell to them, because they're not buying anything. They're cheap and they're just annoying. They just like to complain.
Half the time, yeah. We constantly talk about how they don't buy the books that are marketed towards them, and they complain. And then go into different spaces and complain about what they're not doing and what they're doing. And they do talk about here where he's saying that this probably will change, and he doubts that this will stay. And he even brings up that, Kobayashi even brings up that, you know, that's why I think it's important to win or lose, and not to win or lose in the short term, but to always create something you can be proud of as entertainment, which is the sentiment you should have. Basically, create something that'll have a lasting effect, like the creator of Berserk, who made something where people were dying to see the finishing, you know, the ending of this story because of how good it was, rather than trying to do something for the short term to make money. And when that money dries up because your market essentially falls by the wayside and does the same thing the American market has done, you know, double down and continue going forward. You know, there's no need to do that. And the crescendo of all this, to see what people in the mainstream are making, Emilia Clark decides that she's going to debut her comic. And she said she's I just love how this starts, right? She got a distinct vibe from her local comic book shop No girls allowed. No one told her that. That's just how she feels, apparently.
That was quote unquote the vibe.
That was the vibe she got, So she said they read a lot of fantasy novels and full of rich worlds as a child, like Lord of the Rings, and that's the next thing that's gonna get destroyed. This is the next thing that's gonna get destroyed. You watch, just like Star Wars. That was always the place in my imagination that would gravitate towards blah blah blah. So she talks about she was doing research and she found out that 16% of comic book creators are female and only 30% of comic book characters are women, but on the other hand, half of the comic buyers are female. And I'm like, where'd you get that statistic from? That half of comic buyers are female. Why do you make that?
I don't know where because this whole premise for this comic book is it's just stupid. Like, it's just really, really stupid. And this whole thing about like where she's like half of the comic book sales come from women, and I'm like, and did you look into what books they're buying?
No.
Did you even stop for a second to even think about that? No, because you're like, oh, half of this industry in terms of sales is dominated by women.
And so we don't even know that's true. We don't know
where she got these numbers from. So of course it's like, oh, well, obviously I need to cater to them in the most woman way possible. And of course that's by making a book that literally is about something that no woman cares to think about when it's not happening. Like I just like
she was so mad about this when I showed her this last night.
Like a couple nights ago, he sends me this text.
A snippets of it.
Like he sends me this article, and I'm looking through it, and from what I saw, the title about this woman apparently getting her superpowers from her menstrual cycle, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is horrible. And then it's this whole thing about like, it's what is it? It's born from the idea that single mothers are superheroes. Yeah. I'm a child of a single parent. I have a single mom. And to trivialize what single parents do down to just, oh, they just have superpowers. It's obviously superpowers. And then to go even further to she gets her superpowers from her menstrual cycle it's just so dumb. Like, I just want for people like Emilia Clark and all these other celebrities and all these blue check marks to understand no normal woman wants to talk about her period when, like, just all the time. I don't. The only time I even remotely think about my period is when I'm having it. I don't want to think about it when it's over. I don't want to think about it before it gets here. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to read a comic book about it. Yeah, like all these. Oh my god! Like, I just keep reading like these things. It's when she's scared, she goes invisible. When she's angry, she has superhero human strength. She can swing like Spider-Man from her armpit hair.
From her armpit hair, though.
Like, this is absolutely absurd. This is so, and then it's like, oh, she's ashamed of her powers at the start, and I'm like, your powers outside of your super strength and your invisibility to a small degree are useless. That swinging with your armpit hair is so useless and so dumb, and I just, this is wild. She started dreaming about what a comic book might look like from her perspective. You know, this woman had a brain tumor.
I didn't think you were gonna bring it up.
And I kind of feel like,
I didn't think you were gonna bring it up.
I kind of feel like this is, you know how some people have like tumors, or there's like, they have like an injury, like a concussion, or they have a significant brain injury, and afterwards they're just a little different, you know? Just things are a little off. I kind of feel like this is yeah. Oh, she had two aneurysms. Yeah, I kind of feel like this might be a result of that. I kind of feel like that's what's happening here. I feel like she ain't, things aren't working as well.
So
like,
mean, bro.
Because there's no way. Like, what makes you wake up in the morning and say, yeah, I'm totally gonna make a comic book character who gets her powers from her period? Like, why are they so obsessed with periods? I don't know. Periods are gross. They're uncomfortable.
Periods of food.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, why are they so, like...
This is not the first comic that
It's
did
not.
this. I forgot the other comic and who was creating it, but there was another comic where they got their powers from their periods and stuff, and they turned into, like, these weird man-eating... I think it was called Man-Eaters. Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was called Man-Eaters. Look. Yes. Yes. It was. It was. And they funny enough, do you know how this turned out? Take a wild guess about how this whole thing turned out.
How did it turn out?
All right. So basically, it sparked the whole conversation of the whole, like, they ended up getting canceled, right? So people were mad at them because they said not all women have periods. Some people that aren't essentially women have periods. So it became a whole transgender argument.
Oh, man.
And then they were...
You ever see a snake eat itself? That's what I feel like is the perfect representation of that. That's what I feel like that is. This isn't good either. This is terrible. This is really terrible. Like, I just don't understand. Like, can we not do the whole basing someone's superpowers off periods? It's actually stupid. It's really, really stupid. The average woman really and truly does not want to think about their period, especially people who have very, very painful periods. Someone like me, I have very painful periods. I don't want to think about my period outside of when it's happening. Shoot, when it's happening, I don't even want to think about it. So the fact that you have people out here talking about a mutation in toxoplasmosis causes menstruating women to turn into ferocious killer wildcats, easily provoked and extremely dangerous, to me just sounds ridiculous. This whole idea of Emilia Clarke's comic book character getting all of her powers around the time of her menstrual cycle sounds absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's just... stop it. Full stop. And this isn't a whole, she's living with internalized misogyny to think periods are gross. They are gross. They're gross. The whole process, all of it is gross. From a woman who's been having a period for quite some time, it is gross. And I just don't understand why people actually, like, glorify it to the point of making it seem like, we should just be talking about it all the time. It should just always be a topic of conversation. It doesn't need to be. Please stop. I am tired.
Nobody wants to talk about your bleeding hole.
Like, for people who have things like endometriosis or like fibroids, they don't want to talk about the period all the time, because that is actually a time where life gets extremely, extremely uncomfortable and very, very painful. Stop it. Get some help.
So to wrap this all up in a neat little bow, basically this is the type of stuff that you're getting outside of DC and Marvel. And DC and Marvel aren't doing too hot themselves either with the ideas that are coming out of
I feel like this just comes around, like, the comic book industry is like a rickety chair, and this kind of stuff comes around and just kicks a leg out from under it, and you're really praying that the other three legs can hold up the chair when you sit in it. It probably won't. Let's not have anybody sit in that chair.
So that's just how I feel about it. There's other videos I talked about. I think I basically said it outright. Manga is superior than American comics. All right. Now I will say there's a lot of, like, My Hero who's out here selling and excelling extremely well that is based off of American comics. But in terms of creativity, in terms of diversity amongst the stories being told, in terms of the wealth of creators and the creatives that are in the industry, and then creators still trying to get into the industry, they're in a lot better position, and the standard of quality is way higher too.
I mean, honestly, what you said about My Hero, like, essentially being kind of like based off of like American comics.
It was.
My Hero takes the idea of like American comics and superheroes and turns it on its head. there is a character that can eat something and turn into what it eats. Like American comics, it's all everything's like, oh, you're super strong or you're super fast, you hear really good, things like that. But like My Hero, like I didn't really watch the show and I didn't really get into the manga, but from what I've seen, like the powers and the diversity in powers is so ridiculous and so expansive
and
that
creative,
and very creative. Like I feel like American comics could freaking never when it comes to like that's what it is with anime. I feel like anime, it takes all the things, it's your wildest dreams and it creates a story and it's always so very unique. And I understand there are tropes, but even within the tropes, it's still unique. I mean, look at freaking Twin Tails. Like that's supposed to be your typical like transformative magical girl battle anime, and it's literally a boy becomes a girl. Like transforms into a girl. Like it's just, I feel like with anime the world is very expansive and there's always something new, but when it comes to like American comics and even American like just media, everything's so just
stale.
It's constantly this trying to capture lightning in a bottle from a certain era all over again, and it just gets really repetitive and really really annoying, and everything's got to be PC, and it's just a pie made out of razor blades, wet naps, and Clorox bleach. Like it's just not good on any front. It's just all bad.
Yep. So, and I'm going to show one more thing and then we're going to get out of here. But I've also thought about this too. And I already said that this is their next big threat for American comics. If the budding Korean manga scene, which is called manhwa, if that takes off, and you already have Solo Leveling, which is a Korean property, charting, you better watch out. You better watch out, because then manhwas are going to stomp all over. And that's a new industry. Stomp all over American comics. Mm-hmm. This is the next thing that they got to worry about.
Right.
And I'm so happy for Solo Leveling because I really do like this story. But anyway, so that's just my thoughts. That's just our thoughts. And thank you guys for watching my video. I did one video I did with about orcs and stuff. That's got like almost 600 views now.
Oh shoot, hey man. There you go.
So I need to be more consistent. I'm going to be more consistent, and I got to bring out you guys out more solo videos, a little more serious topics that I like to talk about on the channel. So I have it, like I said, I have an issue with too many things going on in my head at once, and sometimes I got to slow down and just knock things out one at a time. So we're going to start doing that, and I appreciate people that subscribe and people that are watching. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, tell me how I'm doing. Appreciate it. Bye.
See ya.